Ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly why I keep saying Trump is playing chess. When your opponent makes a move and tries to trap you, what do? You counter with a better trap. And that's what's happening, because what just happened at the Strait of Hormuz was not random, and it definitely was not empty posturing, ladies and gentlemen. The talks in Islamabad ended without a deal. Iran thought they would be able to continue to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed and dictate things on their terms, with a $2 million toll with who and who does not get passage in open international waters. But instead of walking away, looking stuck, Trump immediately shifted the pressure back onto Iran by announcing a blockade of our own on the most important oil choke point on the planet. And so we got to break it all down. As always, if you do enjoy the content, make sure you smash that thumbs up button. That's the best way to let me know. Stay locked in with future videos, subscribe, and hit all for your notifications. Now let's jump right into it.
Very big news. We have major developments this morning with the president directing the Navy to begin this blockade of ships in the Strait of Hormuz. This is very important because Iran tried hard to extort the global economy and take over securing the Strait of Hormuz. It is not working. As you just saw, the president's post this morning on Truth Social that the U.S. Navy is beginning this blockade right now of the Strait of Hormuz. Why is this important? Because the strait is a narrow waterway. Typically, the strait is the choke point where 20% of the oil and gas of the world is traveling through this strait. And as a result of what you are seeing this morning with the Navy beginning this blockade, it will be able to stop shifts. What we are seeing as a result, we are seeing a complete diversion. You're seeing major super tankers change direction and go to the Gulf of America for oil and gas.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is why this was smart, because people hear blockade and immediately go emotional. They hear warships and think this is just about looking tough on TV. That was never the real play. The real play is the leverage. Trump is trying to take one of Iran's biggest pressure points and make it less useful. Because if talks fail and Iran still controls the choke point in practice, Iran walks away with leverage. But if talks fail and the U.S. starts showing it can move ships through that waterway anyway, and then they start talking about blockades, clearing hazards, challenging Iran's grip on the route, then all of a sudden Iran is not holding the same cards anymore.
Force on the Strait of Hormuz, and we had not heard any reports of any ships, United States ships, going on the strait until now. U.S. CENTCOM writing that the USS Michael Murphy and the USS Frank E. Peterson are searching for any Iranian mines while trying to establish a clear and safe path. Underwater drones will also be used in the coming days. Now, the Strait of Hormuz is considered very treacherous right now, as the New York Times reports Iran may not be able to fully detect where the Iranian regime may have dropped mines. CENTCOM writing, today we begin the process of establishing a new passage, and we will share this.
And so this is not random. What we're watching is an economic squeeze on Iran through the one pressure point Tehran had tried to use against the world for years, the Strait of Hormuz. After the talks in Islamabad ended without a deal, Trump came right back with the blockade, making it clear U.S. wants to stop ships from effectively rewarding Iran for access through that choke point. It is an economic attack. It's the ability to sit on one of the most important oil routes in the world and make everybody nervous enough to pay attention. And so what Trump is basically doing is saying, if you want to keep using the route like a weapon, I'm going to attack the value of that weapon itself. I'm going to make the world look for other options. I'm going to make the U.S. energy more attractive.
Boats are sailing up and heading out to our country. Big, beautiful tankers, and we're loading them up with oil and gas and everything else. And it's a pretty beautiful thing to see.
The president was very clear in his address to the nation a week and a half ago. He said that the United States right now is operating at 95% capacity. He said that the United States right now is producing more oil and gas than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. And if you remember, he said it twice. He said, let me say that again. The U.S. is producing more oil and gas than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. He directed allies to buy oil and gas from America. Now, the U.S. and allies are increasing their naval presence in the Strait of Hormuz right now to indicate to the world that, yes, Iran wanted the strait closed, it will then be closed, and all the traffic will be redirected to the Gulf of America, where the United States will up its capacity and up its sales of oil and gas to the rest of the world. There is a second front developing right now in this war, and that second front is about the economy. The United States military has destroyed the economy of Iran and will continue to do so. The president has talked a lot about helping the people of Iran. As much as this is decimating Iran and its economy, it is helping the people of Iran on the other side of this.
That's what really chokes Iran. Not necessarily overnight, not in just one dramatic moment, but over time, if the U.S. can control the area, clear hazards, threaten blockade, and make companies think twice about doing business through a route Iran is trying to dominate, then Tehran starts losing the very thing it was trying to hold over the table. Trump's move is aimed in part at vessels paying Iran's toll, and if the pressure actually bites, then Iran is not just losing face, it's losing one of the few leverage points it still has left. That weakens its hand in any future talks because now the message is simple. You don't get to stall diplomacy, threaten the global oil route, and still get to keep all the same bargaining power. And so let's get into what the president posted and then a breakdown on why our Navy has to go and clear the Strait of Hormuz, which you guys will find eye-opening. And so let's take a look at exactly what Trump wrote in that Truth Social post. So there you have it. The meeting went well. Most points were agreed, but the only point that really mattered, nuclear, was not. Effective immediately, the United States Navy, the finest in the world, will begin the process of blockading any and all ships trying to enter or leave the Strait of Hormuz. At some point, we will reach an all being allowed to go in, all being allowed to go out basis, but Iran has not allowed that to happen by merely saying there may be a mine out there somewhere that nobody knows about but them. This is world extortion. The leaders of countries, especially the United States of America, will never be extorted. I've also instructed our Navy to seek and interdict every vessel in international waters that has paid a toll to Iran. No one who pays an illegal toll will have safe passage on the high seas. We will also begin destroying the mines the Iranians laid in the straits. Any Iranian who fires at us or at peaceful vessels will be blown to hell.
Former U.S. Navy Lieutenant Commander Tom Sauer is a mine specialist with extensive experience in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, joining us now. And Tom, there's no better guest we could have this morning as we look at what's transpiring. So we've got two destroyers, the Peterson and the Murphy, going in. Walk us through what is going to happen with the clearing of the strait you see on your screen there.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. And I just got to say, I am so insanely jealous of my former teammates and my Navy EOD brothers who are getting ready to do the job that Navy EOD has been training for and preparing for longer than I've been alive. But let me give you an idea of how I think it might play out. You need to have two conditions ready before you start really any serious mine clearance. One is you need to make sure that there is no mine laying capability, right? And I think we've achieved that through what President Trump said. We've destroyed any of their meaningful mine laying capabilities, because the idea behind that is you don't want to start mopping the floor while the toilet's still overflowing, right? You got to make sure it's stopped. And then on top of that is you really would prefer that the shooting stopped. And we secured that last week with the ceasefire. So now what I believe is probably going to happen, I don't have any special knowledge, but it will probably look something like this, is you're going to see EOD Mobile Unit 6 that's forward deployed to the region from Little Creek, Virginia. They're known as the Keg Busters, and they're the ones who are going to be using expeditionary MCM, which is expeditionary mine countermeasures, which is using a combination of unmanned underwater vehicles, remote operated vehicles, and Navy EOD divers that are going to search the area, look for any mines, because right now, just so you know, we have not had any confirmation of any actual mines in the water. So if there are any mines, they're going to find them, they're going to mark them, they're going to continue the search. search, and then they're going to deal with those mines either through an ROV or a diver or something like that. So that's to kind of give you an idea, generally speaking, of what we're going to look for in that potential danger area that the Iranians declared. But we don't know. There could be plenty. There could be none. We don't know yet. We'll find out.
Iran spent this whole time acting like they controlled the waterway. But the truth is they only have one kind of control, the ability to threaten it. They could scare markets, sure, lay mines, selectively let certain ships through, charge tolls, and use that chaos as leverage. But that's not the same thing as truly controlling the strait. Because if you cannot safely open it, secure it, and guarantee passage through it, then you don't actually control it. You just know how to sabotage it. And that's the part that's getting exposed now. And so Trump's move is simple. If Iran wants to use the strait like a weapon, then America takes that weapon away. First by securing it militarily, then you blockade it in a way that flips the pressure back on them, because Iran's leverage was always that the world needed that route more than Iran needed to keep it open. But once the United States steps in and says, no, we're taking control of this lane, and you're not going to profit threatening the global economy anymore, now all of a sudden, the leverage starts to change hands. And that's also where the economic squeeze comes in. Iran was still able to selectively move oil, still able to keep some favorite countries supplied, still able to weaponize the strait while benefiting from it. Trump's answer is no, we're not allowing that game anymore. If this blockade works the way he wants, then Iran loses revenue, loses leverage, and loses the ability to sit there blackmailing the world with the choke point they cannot even properly manage themselves. And then there's China, of course, because this is not just about Iran. China's the real shadow player here. Iran needs China, and China needs Iran's oil. And so when Trump moves to choke off that point, he's not just putting pressure on Tehran, he's putting pressure on Beijing too. He's basically forcing China into a choice: pressure Iran to take the deal, escalate against the US, or deal with the major threat in its own energy security. Trump is not just negotiating with Iran directly, he's using Iran's dependency to put China in check too. And now again, China could decide to possibly respond in some other way, but I'm just laying out the logic here. And the bigger point is this: if America ends up with lasting control over the strait, then Iran loses its greatest source of leverage permanently. That means any future deal is enforced from a position of American strength, not Iranian blackmail. And if Iran even falls out of line again, the US can squeeze them economically all over again. That's the strategy. Take away their strongest card, turn it into their biggest liability, and then force them to the table with even less power than what they had before. And that's why this move matters. Iran thought closing the strait would make the world panic and make America back off. Instead, it may have forced the exact outcome that hurts them the most. America stepping in, taking control, and using that control to economically choke them until they either deal, fold, or collapse under the weight of their own mistakes. Iran tried to use Hormuz as blackmail. Trump's move is to turn the blackmail into a trap. But those are my thoughts in the update. Now let me hear from you. As always, I appreciate when you guys chime in. Drop your comments down below. Enjoy the content. Smash that thumbs up. And as always, until next time.